Hi all, Abby Altizer here. I wanted to take a second, since I will likely not have another opportunity, to thank you for such a great class. It was great seeing you in the forum and getting to know some of you a little bit. I feel very lucky to be in such a great group of educators, so thank you. My research topic was assessment of student reading ability. It's a pretty broad topic, so I covered quite a bit of ground. I imagine that my audience, that's you, I guess, were the type of resourceful people that if you wanted more super detailed information, you could check out my sources or do some searching on your own. If you're listening along, it might be a fun game to count how many times I say assess, because I can assure you it will be a whole lot of times. I went ahead and split this subject into just 4 simple questions: the why, what, how, and when. Let's start with the why. I think that the number one reason that we assess our students is to check in with them, and that may be on any number of levels. Definitely before instruction, during, and after, we are checking in with individual students and getting a feel for the class as a whole and their level of understanding. We are collecting data, planning for short and long term. We're progress monitoring. We're monitoring growth. There's a lot that goes into this. It helps us identify knowledge gaps and correct misconceptions. And we're identifying learning disabilities, behavioral, social, emotional, environmental challenges that a lot of our students are facing. Which brings us to, what are we assessing? Many of the articles that I was looking at in my research just spit out lists, long lists of things to assess, like reading comprehension and speed, letter knowledge, phonics, phonemic awareness, syntax, and that's just to name a few. These skills range from super general to very, very specific. We're also assessing for challenges, those same ones that I talked about before: learning disabilities, social, emotional, environmental. And we are monitoring for growth and progress. How have our students changed from the beginning of the year to the end of the year? If we didn't have assessments, we wouldn't know if they were learning. And lastly, I added this that honestly didn't come up very much in my research at all, but I wanted to add it from my own experience, which is that we are assessing also to notice sudden changes. If your student's work changes suddenly with no obvious reason, that's part of what we assess, I think, as educators, or at least that's part of what I assess with my K-4 students. If there is a big sudden change, I want to know how I can support that kid right away. Moving on to the how. I like to split the how of these assessments into screening and diagnostic assessments and instructional assessments. The screening and diagnostic assessments are broadly given. They are very driven by data. That could be standardized tests in the way we usually think of them, like nationally the ACT and the SAT, or third grade reading tests. Or they can be sort of introductory diagnostics, like at the beginning of kindergarten reading tests. Then there are instructional assessments. These are the ones that we're administering the most often in our classrooms: pre-tests, turn and talk, quizzes, projects, thumbs up, thumbs down, all of those that take place throughout our instruction. And then from the instructional assessments, we can split it into formal versus informal, and then formative versus summative. And I won't get into more of that because I know that's someone else's topic. And I put a pro tip here at the bottom. You'll see that at the big ideas at the end too, because it's really important, which is to change it up. Next we have, when do we assess? This is simple. On day 1, every step of the way in between, and of course at the end. And I'm going to skip ahead to make sure that we have enough time to cover all these big ideas one more time. These are the 3 things that really stood out to me: assess early and often, change it up